So we're going to have a look at the drawing the columns and the grid, but I just want to kind of quickly go through what the stages of drawing would look like from here on. Okay, so at the end of 1B you've drawn the plinth and the steps. Okay, 1C is to draw walls using the edges to help you start the walls off, and then different offsets and extensions to get the ends of these walls. Okay, so we build it up piece by piece, one wall at a time, so you get the practice, and different techniques for tidying up the ends of walls. You can trim, you can fillet, you can use grips, there's all sorts of ways of doing things. Okay, we need the walls to be able to draw the pools. Okay, because say for this instance, for instance here, the pool starts at the corner of the wall, so you need the wall there first. Okay, then we're looking at creating a grid to house the columns. Okay, and the grid is different line type because it doesn't really exist. If you go to the building, you can't see these lines. They're non-existent. Okay, they are just diagrammatic for the production of the building. Okay, so we use different line types for things that are underneath the ground or underneath this plinth, different line type for what's above our head, the shapes of the roofs above us. Okay, so that takes us to the end of stage 1D. Okay, then we go on to adding the window shapes. We draw some bits but then drop in the rest, so I'm not expecting you to draw all of these. Similarly with the walls, we do 3 of them but we drop in the rest. So it may seem like there's a lot of work to be done, but half of it is just dropped in. Okay, and then the final stages, we've got the shapes of the roofs above our head, and then the bench seat with these pillars underneath the bench spaced evenly, and that's the lesson there, is getting them spaced evenly. It's really easy to do things wrongly in Autocad, but accuracy is what we're after. Okay, what I'll do is I'll just create a fresh drawing and we'll do this grid line bit and the columns and just kind of talk you through that. Okay, so I just clicked on the plus sign there to start a new drawing. I could have come up to here and clicked new. Alternatively, if you're at the start menu, you click new there. Okay, so firstly I want to create a new layer to work on. Okay, in this empty drawing, in this empty template, there's only layer 0. Okay, and that's common to every CAD drawing. If there's no layer 0, there's something wrong with the file. It's going to crash on you and you're going to be pretty unhappy. Okay, so a healthy drawing should have layer 0 in it. So we click the big layer properties button. Okay, and we want to create a new layer. We give it a name, so I'm going to use the same name as we use in the tuition material, so it's grid lines, 2D grid lines. The color of the layer, this is important because it's the colors that we use, these standard colors 1 to 9. Okay, these map to black pens of varying thicknesses. Now anybody that's of my kind of generation will have used ink pens for architectural drawings. Okay, and so Staedtler and Rotring produced these very fine technical pens, but they were color coded. So the pen that had the red nib was the thinnest pen. That was I think it was about 0.13, the one they had. So that was your really thin pen. Okay, then the yellow one, the one that had the yellow nib, okay, black ink came out of it, but it had a yellow nib on it. Okay, that was 0.25. Okay, the brown one was our 0.5 pen, but for here we're using, because it's the most commonly used one, we kind of use color 7 instead, color the white one. So we've not got the brown one. Okay, but this is 0.5 millimeters, and then we had a pink nibbed one, and that was 0.7 millimeters. So we kind of keep that same bit of history kind of going with the choice of colors. Okay, so our layer is, we want this to be thin. We don't want it to, you know, take over the drawing and blot everything else out. So we're using the thin pen. This is 0.1 millimeters, maps to red pen. Okay, we want the line type to look different. So we click the continuous word and load in a new line type. Okay, I'm looking for the one called center, and as its name kind of suggests, it's used to mark the center points of objects, and so this tends to be used for grid lines. So we load the line type. I need to tell it I want to use that line type, and then OK. So the layer's good to go now. It's got its name, color, line type. We just need to make it current so that it uses it from now on. So you either click the little green tick, or you double click the word 2D grid lines. So either of those will do the same thing. Okay, there isn't an OK or a close. What you do with this is just hit the X in the top corner. Okay, it remembers that, it doesn't revert it, it's kept everything, so it kind of saves instantly. It doesn't have an accept or apply kind of button. Okay, now you might notice that my cursor is yellow, and the square in the middle of the cursor is a little bit bigger than maybe you've got on your screen. Okay, the square in the middle is controlled by a command called pickbox, and the standard setting for that is 3 pixels, but that's a bit small for most monitors nowadays, so I set that to 6. So you just type in 6, so it's pickbox, enter, 6, enter, and that will remain like that until you tell it otherwise. The yellow comes from kind of AutoCAD's kind of preferences. It doesn't use the word preferences, it uses options. So the red letter A, options, or you can type in options. Okay, now I've been in this already, so it remembered where I left it. So usually it starts at this tab, the Files tab, but to change the color of things you go to the Display tab. This is for the size of the crosshairs. Don't make it too big, it looks kind of ridiculous. Okay, so let's say we'll go to 7. Okay, and the color of the crosshairs is you've got control over all the different parts of the screen. Tell it what color you want to work with. Okay, I've got the crosshairs there set to yellow. Let's just change it back to white. Okay, background color. Most people, when they're working, we spend most of our time in the model space, and so that has a dark colored background. It's not black, it's a bit lighter than black. Okay, but this takes a lot of strain off your eyes. So if you work with a white background all the time, you get a bit too much eye strain. Okay, so we've changed our crosshairs. You apply and close, apply, OK. So I've got back to white and slightly smaller than it was before. Okay, so some of these things are per drawing, and others are what are called system variables, and they stay put. If you change them, they'll stay like that. Okay, so we're ready to draw. So we want a line. Okay, I'm just going to start the drawing anywhere at this stage, just for an example. Okay, so just click, left click, and I can see that the line is broken up. It's in, if I zoom in while I'm doing that, I'm holding shift and rolling the mouse, getting closer to my line. I can see that it's definitely using this center line type. Okay, but I want to draw horizontally. Okay, I could hold the shift key and it forces ortho temporarily. Let go of shift, it goes back to free. Okay, or I could put ortho on here and it will stay on. It will keep the direction in the way we need it. Okay, so I want to draw in this direction, so I just drag the mouse to the right, let go of the mouse, and just type in the distance that you want. So I'm going to do my first grid line 10 meters long. So it's not just 10 and enter, it's 10,000. We draw in millimeters. So down here I've got 10,000. Always try and get the right number of zeros. Very common error to miss off a zero or add one. So 10,000, enter, enter to stop. Okay, now where's the end of the line? I'm just rolling the mouse backwards till I can see the line. You could double tap the middle mouse button and it zooms extents, it fills the screen with the line. Okay, just dropping back. So that line is exactly 10 meters long. Okay, but there's too many dashes on that, isn't there? There's probably about 100 dashes. You know, imagine you were drawing this by hand and it was about the same size as you can see on screen. You know, how many dashes would you draw? Certainly not 100. You'd be there all day. And the line would look untidy as well if you draw too many dashes. Really, you know, maybe you want about 20 dashes there, something like that at most. So we use a command called line type scale. It shortens to LTS. Enter. So let's see what 10 comes out at. At the moment it's set at 1. Let's say 10. Still too many breaks in the line. Okay. Want to use that again, you just press enter again, put in another number. So it's a bit trial and error with line type scale, but that's okay. I think that's probably about as many dashes as I would draw myself. Now the names of the line types is important. Okay. Now look at the list. I'll just call up the list. We've used one called center. Let's have a look at the list again. And you'll see there's 3 versions of center. Center, center 2, and center times 2. Okay, what you don't do in a drawing is mix these end bits up. So if I wanted to add the dash dot line type to my drawing just now, I would use this version. Okay, the one that doesn't have anything on the end of it. Okay, don't mix one that doesn't have anything with one that does. It gets really difficult to control your line types. Okay, so we would want to keep just using the ones that don't have anything added to them. Then we get a consistent control of the line types. Okay, it's an area of the software that isn't great. It never has been very good. It's a wee bit messy. I don't think they dare go near it because we've kind of lived with it for so long that if they changed it, I think everybody would just freak out. So it hasn't had the kind of improvement that it should have had. I think it's long overdue. Okay, so that's our first line, and let's say we want to create a grid where the grid lines are 5 meters apart. So the next grid line is going to be 5,000, then another grid line 5,000. Okay, to get parallel copies, the simplest command to use is offset. Okay, down in the command prompt it's asking me what gap do I want between my objects, and I type in 5,000. Enter. It's then saying pick your object and decide which side you want to go. So pick, and then if I go that way it will appear here, if I go this way it will appear there. Okay, so this new line that's showing up is a ghost at the moment. So I want it to go this way, I'll single left click. The command hasn't gone away, it wants you to carry on going. So that's cool. just when I'm panning, I'm panning in the middle of the command there. I'm just holding the middle mouse button down, and it lets you just adjust the screen while you're working. Okay, so I can go to the newest line, go up again, and left click, and you could keep going and going and going. So, you know, imagine you're drawing a staircase or a fence, something that's got lots of the same line in the same orientation. So press escape to stop offset. Okay, so we're good for the horizontal lines just now, but we haven't got any verticals. So what I need to do now is draw things accurately from end point to end point. Okay, I don't go from end to end to end. Okay, the grid line should be continuous in one go. Okay, let's have a look at our object snaps. And I've got the ones set here that we kind of advise for the class generally. Endpoint, midpoint, intersection, perpendicular. These are the four, you know, most common ones that you would require for plan drawing and elevation drawing, etc. Okay, we tend not to draw that many circular or arc shaped objects, so you wouldn't have that one switched on as well. Okay, so we need a new line, and we can let the object snaps do their work now. When the button is blue, it means it's active and looking for these geometric positions. So endpoint to endpoint. Enter to stop. Enter to bring back the command, and we're ready to go again. Midpoint to midpoint. Enter to stop. Enter to bring back the command, and we'll draw the final one. It would be a bit strange to stop the command there and do a 5000 offset. So, you know, there's so many ways of doing the same thing. You know, nobody's right or wrong. As long as your drawing ends up the way it should be, it doesn't really matter how you get there. So we're going from endpoint to endpoint. Enter to stop. Okay, now for my building, I'm needing another structural bay. Okay, so what do we do here? Do we draw a line out 5000, down 5000, back 5000? Not really, because we need the grid lines to be continuous. So I don't want to add fresh lines coming out this way. Okay, what I could do is offset and then create the corners. So I'll show you that way first. Okay, so we'll offset. The 5000 is already there on the command prompt, so I just press enter. Pick, move, pick. Enter to stop. Okay, now to form corners, the quickest command to use is called fillet. And what fillet does, it will extend things but also chop things in the same go. So if I try the fillet command, I want this bit to be extended, so I click that first, and I want to keep this bit of the line, and you can see what it's done there. It creates a corner for you. Enter to go again. I want to extend this one, but I want to keep this line. It's beautifully simple. It seems really simple, but that command takes the most sinking in of all the commands. Now, when I first started using Autocad, I was on my year out, and I just kept nipping the guy's head that was in the office. It was like, John, I'm sorry, which bit do I pick? Which line do I pick? You know, and he was very gracious. He was very patient. He knew that give it a week or two, I wouldn't be asking anymore. And he was right. You know, it just sinks in. It'll click at some point, and you'll be fine with those commands. Fillet has another advantage, that you can add curves to corners. So if I do fillet but with a radius, and let's say a radius of say 2000, quite a big radius, when I join them now, it will join with a curve. enter to use the command again, pick the bit I want to keep, which is going to be about here, and then take it to the top. Fillet's really easy to do wrong. You can pick, you know, the wrong bit of the line and things won't work. Let me try picking near the top of this. It's still okay there. That's not bad. Sometimes it would say, nah, I can't do it. Okay, let's put it back. And so this is the situation we were in with the offset. Okay, so another way of doing it is to extend objects. And the simplest way of extending, if you're just going horizontally or vertically, is to use grips. So with this, all you need to do is pick the object with no command, okay, and then click on the grip, and the default action is to make things longer. So we're stretching to a position, so we're taking it to the end point here. This one, if we extend it, we will either go to the midpoint or perpendicular. Now watch what happens if I tap my tab key here. It will go through the various object snaps that could work for that line. Okay, so if I tap the tab key, so perpendicular is okay, endpoint no, endpoint no, midpoint is okay as well. So do you see how it's kind of cycling through them? Midpoint, perpendicular, sorry, do it again, accidentally pressed click there. Okay, so midpoint, perpendicular, endpoint, endpoint, midpoint, perpendicular, endpoint, endpoint. It's cycling through them until you get to the one you want. Okay, we've extended an object there. We could shorten an object. So if we click on this one, we could bring it back. Okay, another way for that is to trim that bit off. So you've got the trim command here, the little pair of scissors, or type TR, enter. At the moment I'm on the quick trim method, so it's looking for objects that are trimmable. Easy to use. Okay, fillet, if I just extend these, you know, the good thing about fillet is that it does the trimming as well. So you can have a situation where one object is too long and one is too short. If you fillet that, then it tidies both lines up at the same time. So, you know, my advice with people is, you know, okay, use trim and extend, but start using fillet and you'll be much more efficient. You will be quicker in the long run. Okay, right, that's the first part of the grid done. We've got a general grid, but it's not looking like an architectural grid yet, or an engineering grid. Okay, let's have a quick look back at the main model. Okay, and you see what we've got here. The lines are extending, and that's so that we can put a symbol on the end of them. Okay, so let's take it down here. Okay, so this would be, let's say this is grid line 1, and this would be grid line A. You don't use 1, 1, you do 1, A, B, C. So this is 1, 2, 3 in this direction. Okay, let's just put a circle on here. Okay, and I'm going to move it to the end, and then this would have a letter in it, or a number. So this is grid line 1. Okay, so we tend not to put the numbers on design drawings. They go on kind of working drawings. Okay, and then that would be A. Positions would be a little bit tidier than that. So you get the idea? That's why the lines extend, so that we can add a flag or a tag onto each one. And then this one would be B, etc., etc. Okay, and that's why the lines extend slightly, so that they can accept a symbol and it doesn't clash with the object that's at the intersection. Okay, so we need to extend our grid lines in the same way. Now we could do this manually. I was going to say I could use the grips, and then I want to go in this direction by say 500 millimeters. Okay, do the same to this one. It's like, okay, how many times have I got to type in 500? So another 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I've got to type in 500 another 12 times. Could be even more times than that, couldn't it? So rather than do that, what I would do here is offset by 500. So instead of 5,000, we're offsetting by 500. And then we can use the grips, and it's much quicker. So we can take these lines out till they hit the further away line. So it's just using those grips, really nice and quick. It's a lot easier than typing in 500 lots of times. Okay, then the extra lines, the ones we used to help, just get deleted, and we're left with our little extended grid. Okay, so that's first part is the grid. The next part is creating the columns. Just checking what time we've got here. So we've been in an hour and 5. So we've only got about 10 minutes left. So that's fine. We'll just create our column. So a new layer for our columns. So let's see, 2D column stainless. Okay. We don't want red. We want a thicker shape drawn for these, so let's use white. So it uses a 0.5mm pen, and the line type wants to be continuous. All good. Make that current, and we're ready to draw. Okay, now the columns aren't very big, so I'm going to zoom in a bit closer. Okay, so bear in mind that's 500mm, so our column is going to be about half that size. Okay, and we start off with a line. Okay, and this is to help us establish where the center of the column is. So first off, with ortho on, just a single line, 125mm long. That end of the line is where the center of the column is going to be. Okay, now we use a different type of line called a polyline, because there's lots of small portions around the shape of the column. Okay, I don't want to lose any of these bits. I want to keep them together. Okay, so we use a polyline. So I'm going to start here, up 25, across 100, up 100, across 50, down 100, across 100, down 50. So you just keep repeating that. So it's 100, 100, 50. Oh, that was 5. Can go back one step, but just tapped in the letter U and pressed enter there to drop back one step. So instead of 5, it needs to be 50. 100, 100, stop. So press enter now. Okay. If I drew another line to close that off, then we'd have 2 lines at the end of this shape. There should only be 1, like there is at this end. Okay, so this is where I'll use the grips to close the shape. Escape. Okay, so that's the shape that's going onto the model. So we turn that into a block. Use the command B. Okay, we use blocks to allow us to redesign and also to embed information into the shapes. I'll show you that once we've got the blocks in place. So the command is just the letter B to make a block. We give it a name, and in the notes it's called a cruciform column. We pick a control point, end of this line, then we pick the objects we want to use. So select objects, just the polyline. not this line. Enter. You can see the shape is ready to go, ready to turn into a block. I'm going to leave the shape where it is so we don't lose it. We can come back to it and redesign it, and OK. So the block is in danger at the moment. It hasn't been used yet, so we need to apply it to the drawing. Okay, so what I'll do is place 3 blocks along this bottom line. Okay, so what you do to place a block is insert it. So it's insert, drop the arrow down on here, recent blocks. Okay, this is the one that's ready to go, but I want to see the full menu here, so I went for recent blocks. Okay, because I want to use repeat placement, so I don't have to keep coming back to this dialog every time. So I can see my block here ready to use. I right click it. I'm going to be controlling the insertion point and the repeat placement. Okay, so right click it, insert. Okay, it's on the end of my cursor now. This block, this dialog doesn't kind of go away, so it's kind of blocking the view a bit. Okay, let's come over here so I can zoom in. Okay, and we've got intersection set up on our object snaps, so it's finding the intersection points of the grid. So we leave one there. I'm holding the middle mouse button down so I can slide the drawing. I can leave one there at midpoint. If I'm not happy with that, tap tab till I get intersection. Perpendicular, it's okay, but I'd rather it say intersection, so you tap the tab key. Okay, now we could carry on doing that and placing them all everywhere. A more efficient way of doing it is to copy them into position. So back on the home ribbon, we've got copy, or you type in CO or CP, pick the 3 columns there, enter, and I'm going to use the grid lines to help me place it. So the base point is related to the objects that are just about to move, so it's end point to end point to end point. Okay, do the same again, but just copy 2 of them across. Copy 1, 2, enter, from endpoint to endpoint, and that is super exact. These are all exactly where we want them. We can get rid of this now because it's hogging most of the screen. Okay, grid done, columns done. Engineer phones up and says, oh, the shape we're needing is in really short supply. I'm afraid, to get the building done on time, we're going to have to change the columns to circular. You go, oh no way, it's got to be cross-shaped, but we still need the building, so we'll give in, we'll go circular. So let's delete this and draw a circle instead. So circle, or C and enter. Okay, let's give it some thickness. Let's say it's 15 millimeters thick. So offset by 15, enter, go in the way. Okay, and then because these are blocks, if we remake a block but use the same name as this one, all these will change. Okay, so it's B, enter, choose the name of the block that's already there, pick point, end of this line, so that we're using the same point that this one did, so they don't end up shifting accidentally. Select objects, so the 2 circles, enter. Everything else stays as it was. If we click OK now, we'll get a warning saying, hold on, there's already a block in this drawing called cruciform column. Do you want to redefine it? Yes. Now they've all changed to circular columns. Okay, so sometimes people put in shapes that are just there just for general holding a position, and then they drop in the more detailed components once the design's a bit more thrashed out and things have been costed. Right, really quick example. What we'll do is add some information to this. I'm going to add what's called an attribute to it. So let's say the tag is called column number. The prompt, enter column number, and the default value, we don't know what to put, so we'll just put 2 dashes. Okay, try that again. Forgot to make the text a bit bigger. Column number, prompt, enter column number, default dash dash. Text height needs to be much bigger, say 75. Justification, let's say middle, bottom center. Okay. Okay, just move that so it's related to the column a bit better. Okay, so we'll remake the block. So it's block again, use the same name, pick point, same pick point. Okay, select objects, but we include the attribute this time. Enter. OK, redefine. Right, now we need to update the blocks that are already here, and that is a command called attsync, attribute sync, synchronize. Select, I need to select this column, enter, so the dashes have appeared at the bottom of all of them now, and they become editable now. So if I double click it, I can put in that this is column 1A. Okay, double click this one, this is column 1B. Okay, double click this one, 2A. Do you get the idea? So we can embed the information into them. If I placed one directly, if I insert a fresh one, okay, it should come up and ask me the question itself. It says enter the column number, this would be 1C. Get the idea? It's a very useful way of kind of enhancing it. So that might be just the number of the column, could be the color of the column, is it fire protected, what type of fire protection, is it paint, is it filled with concrete, all these kind of things. What's the height of the column, anything special about it, you know, is it holding a fire extinguisher or something like that. So that's how you kind of make the information a bit cleverer, a bit kind of richer. Cruciform column's a bit of a strange name for a column that's circular, so if I use the rename command, look at the blocks in the drawing, and I could rename this to circular column. That makes more sense, doesn't it? So if we insert now, it's a circular column. So a lot of that stuff could have been done in all sorts of different ways. You know, I just can only really show you my way of doing things. Other people, you know, will have picked things up or have seen things done differently. You know, where there's a really obvious other way of doing something, I'll tell you about it. But you know, there is always other ways of doing things. But you know, efficiency is what you're after. You know, the minimum number of lines. You know, no more lines than there should be, no more objects than there should be, and things, you know, drawn accurately, horizontally, vertically, etc.